Hi and welcome to Arctic Game Talks. This is the first session we're running in a number of sessions, and we hope it's going to be great. My name is Johan Linder. I'm one of the hosts for today's show, and this is my colleague,
Kristoffer Wike.
So nice that so many of you came here. First, I wanted to elaborate a bit about Arctic Game Talks and why we do it. It's a stressing situation for a lot of you that is out there not being able to meet your colleagues and talk and discuss and so on. So we've been looking at that quite a lot, how to make the community connect better. And especially for us in this region, we have 5 municipalities where we try to work together and get the people connected in different ways. And that's been hard as it is, and now with this situation, it's been even more tough. So we hope this format will work good for you and that you'll be happy about it. We will send out some questions to you afterwards just to check what you feel about it. I also want to, the format's going to be a bit about the news about the Arctic Game Lab region, and we're also going to highlight some local business news and some global games industry news. And then we will have a guest each week that will present their content. And today we have Ciro with us from Unity that will talk a bit about the latest and greatest in Unity. So I also wanted to highlight our Discord channel. We have a Discord for Arctic Game Lab where we hope as many as possible will join from the community just to be able to share ideas, news, work possibilities and so on. It would be good that if you joined. Hopefully we'll have in the chat soon a link to that Discord server as well so that you can join. We also have a Swedish Fika channel there where we have a Fika 10 a.m. and 15 p.m. So you're very welcome to just join in that voice channel, talk to some colleagues and just have fun. Good. And then we also created a new email, news@arcticgamelab.com. So if you have like business news you want to highlight, you could email us. It's also about like releases of games. Please send us information. And if you have ideas about topics we should raise or speakers that we should try to bring, you're much welcome just to send us a line and we'll see what we can do about that. All right, good. So Kristoffer, or Stoffe as we call him, is new here. It's actually his first day job.
Yes.
We forced him to be on video.
Yes, straight into the frying pan.
Yeah. So I just wanted to introduce you. I thought it would be a good time to introduce you to our community. So how is it to move to the north?
Oh well, it's beautiful. It's fantastic up here. We actually got some snow yesterday as well, so that was something that I was looking forward to, coming from Stockholm now, where we haven't seen snow in 3 years or something like that. So this is beautiful, fantastic.
Yeah, and you're leaving Stockholm for the north of Sweden. That's actually really, really good, and that's something we want to get more people to do. So that's fantastic.
Yes, I think it's one of my work titles actually.
All right, good. You will work both with like events and business development, probably helping companies as a producer or co-producer, and just try to give them as much support as possible. What would you like to accomplish with your work here?
Oh, I want everyone to play more board games.
Okay.
Okay. I want everyone to be able to be more in tune with each other and see that we actually have a beautiful and wonderful community here that can work together in a great experience.
Good. Cool. And so you've been working with the games industry for a couple of years.
Yes.
What are you bringing here?
Oh, I hope I bring a large network and that all my time invested in games since the 90s somewhere when it all started, in conjunction with all the different things and experience that I've been doing as I've tried to make every company that I have worked with so far try games on. So hopefully that's what I'm bringing, and I hope I can actually give back to the community more, even up here.
Super. So we let's switch to like local game industry questions. We have I just started a poll, so hopefully you will see it and you can answer. The Corona situation is of course hard for everyone. It's affecting a lot of business, and if I look at what we do, we are actually working from home now, not seeing so much people, but getting quite a lot done. So we just thought it would be interesting to know more about how you're affected by this situation. It would be good for us to know. So just please answer the poll. And I can't see anyone's polling.
No, I can't even see the poll.
Well, never mind then.
It's new. Everything is new for us.
Yeah, let's try this next time. Okay, cool. I also have some other great local business news, and that's about the Umeå-based company Sordix. They just recently released a press release about buying the Hungarian company Invictus. Invictus has more than 50 published game titles behind them. They started early 2000, so it's a game company with a long track in the industry, and with their 25 employees, it means that Sordix will double in size, which we think is amazing. It means we will have more power up in the north as well, so we're just really happy for Sordix about this, so good work. Yeah, and that's the local news. And as I said earlier, if you want more local news, please email us. We will try to get as much as we can into this format. So if we look globally.
Yes, if we look globally, as everyone due to Corona is switching to remote work, so are a lot of events, especially White Nights, which is going to switch to an online web hub this already now on the 24th of April, when their latest event was supposed to go. They will try to bring this platform will bring together all the professionals in the video game industry for what they say the ultimate online business networking experience that transcends the virtual conference format.
Wow.
Yes. There will be anything from video meetings, which will allow participants to make appointments, as well as set up video calls to developers and to showcase indie devs to each other. And there will, of course, be panel discussions and lectures.
And the interesting part about that is it's actually free to register.
Yes. Exactly.
So for you all in the network, it could be just wise to check it out. It could be something. It could be crap as well, but who knows?
Yes. On another one is last night there was a press release from Gamescom. And at this point, they're saying that Gamescom will take place at the Cologne Exhibition Center as planned. Though they will extend the digital presence in one way or another. Though they do say that in the mid-May they will reevaluate to see if the on-site event will take place or not.
Yeah, that's super crucial for us. I mean, the Arctic Game Pitch, the end of that is like going to Gamescom, and we always go to Gamescom with a lot of companies, so it's super interesting for the Arctic Game Lab just to see what's happening there, but we'll just stay tuned.
Yes.
All right, so super. So let's go to our guest. So hi, Ciro.
Hi, let me turn on my camera.
Yeah.
I was doing the most silly thing. I was customizing the Zoom background.
Ooh, it's really nice.
I was trying to do it live right now.
So we're really happy you can join us and just let us know a bit about what's happening at Unity.
Yeah, sure. So first I'll introduce myself. My name is Ciro Continisio. I'm the lead of a team at Unity called Evangelism. I lead evangelism for the EMEA region. So basically our job is to travel, it used to be to travel, to game conferences, to workshops, and to spread the word about Unity, obviously, especially about the latest features. So we move between, my guest sound is high, somebody's saying in the chat. Yeah, stay further from the microphone. So we move between marketing and teaching people. So kind of like education. That's one of the things that I really have at heart. So I really want to make sure that people understand, especially in the Unity ecosystem, things are always a bit complex, right? The ecosystem is always growing. So my priority is to make sure that our message comes out clear. So what's new? You were asking about the latest and greatest. Can I share my screen?
Yeah, you can. And I also want to mention before you start that we will have a Q&A session after this. So there's a Q&A function in Zoom. Please just write your questions there and we'll try to go through it after we've seen what Ciro will show us.
Yeah, perfect. I really want to make this a bit interactive, actually. I don't have a very long presentation ready. How much time do I have?
Well, you have up to half an hour, so yeah.
That's even too much.
Yeah.
But yeah, I really want to make this interactive. So if anyone has questions, you can either use the chat or especially the Q&A tool in Zoom. So I'll share my screen. There we go. Can you see my screen?
Yeah.
Yes.
Can you see it changing to?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, it looks like. Yeah, cool. So, I mean, the latest about Unity, obviously, as you know, we also have been affected by the latest news. All of our offices are closed right now, and we're working from home. I'm working from home from Napoli, actually, from the south of Italy right now. And so, especially for my team, this has been a big impact. We don't have events to go to. We used to travel a lot. I used to travel every other week. And so for now, we are looking at how we can basically pivot to online. And as you said, as you mentioned for White Nights, the question here is not just bringing what we were doing before to online. That wouldn't make sense because people wouldn't be just sitting in front of the computer all day. So events such as our developer days, which were a full day conference, we won't be doing them in the same way. And we won't just be bringing them online because that wouldn't make sense. So we're trying to figure out the way to change to this new situation, at least for the moment. Recently, we released this blog post. You can read about it on the blog. It's called State of Unity. It highlights, obviously, what's happening in the engine, but also what's happening on the event side. As part of this initiative, we also premiered a roadmap session. So roadmap sessions are very typical sessions that we do at Unite, usually. And this time we decided to split them into topics. So the first one, I think it was 3 days ago. It was streamed live on YouTube. As you can see here, Will Goldstone was presenting it, and it was dedicated to core engine and creator tools. And so this one was the first session. We then had a session on the forums, thread, where basically after the roadmap session, people could ask questions, and then the PMs, the product managers, could answer all these questions. And so today, actually, just tonight at 6 p.m., we will have another roadmap for live games. So meaning everything that is connected, our networking situation, our services. So if you're making games that, have to be connected somehow, where your players speak to each other or play against each other or together, I think you really wanna follow this one. And again, we will have another thread on the forums. So just after the session finishes, and I think it's roughly like 45 minutes, you can jump on the forums, you can ask questions, and for 2 days, the PMs will be able to go back to you and answer, in a bit of a longer form than what a normal Q&A session during a streaming would allow. I want to see if there's some anything in the Q&A tool. No. Okay, cool. Do you guys have questions? Or you want to make some comments?
Nothing yet, but it's
Okay.
just interesting to see. I think everyone's just trying to adjust to this new situation, how to be as digital as possible.
Yeah. We actually have some other news, but I cannot share yet. I think they're going to be released tonight. So if you keep an eye on the blog, you will see something which I'm not allowed to say yet, which is unfortunate. I was hoping for the announcement to happen before this streaming.
Oh yeah.
And that's why I set it up this week and not the previous one. But anyway, bad time.
This is an announcement as well to check out the blog tonight then.
Yeah. I mean, in terms of other news, I don't want to dive too much. Oops, I did the wrong one. I don't want to dive too much into individual features because, I mean, for developers, I don't know what's the audience here, and every developer has their own goals, has their own type of games that they're making. So I can't really focus on one feature. The only thing I want to touch on, let's see if I can show you. So this is part of the roadmap session that we did the other day. And I want to reuse the slides. As you can see, it brings the name of Will Goldstone. These are not my slides. But the only thing I want to touch on is basically this year for us is going to be a big year for quality, which sounds a bit of an overloaded thing, but I mean, it's the usual promise, right, that every tool makes every year. But it's really the truth, because last year we really shook the foundations of Unity when we, not really last year, but last year was probably the peak of the change at Unity. I don't know, do you guys develop in Unity as well?
We don't. We just try to support, but I know a lot of people in our network use Unity, so it's a really commonly used tool.
Well, if you have worked with Unity in the last year and a half, you will have seen this change that came to Unity, which is the packages. And packages means that we are basically taking the engine and splitting it up in different parts, in different packages. And then the promise is that you will be able to basically decide what functionality goes into the engine and what stays out. So you will be able to basically customize the engine to your own needs. But not just with plugins, it's literally going to be every single part of the engine. And this process has brought a lot of pain to, I'm being honest here. I like to be honest. It has brought a lot of pain to external developers, like the people in the chat now, and to us as well, because developing with packages is really, really hard. So we have been figuring out this process. We have made some whole steps sometimes, and that was last year. And this year we're going to really focus on making this whole process a bit more stable for everyone. So with packages, we're focusing a lot on releasing packages that are more stable, so more testing before we release. We're also shifting our focus on marketing a little bit. We are trying to avoid, pushing some packages too much, packages that are maybe not ready for production, because obviously we always want people to try tools early, because we want feedback. We want, we can't develop only for ourselves. We need the community to chime in and say what they need. So we always want people to try packages as early as possible, but that can be a dangerous process. And that's why we are shifting a little bit our intentions, our messaging to, suggest trying preview packages only when it's really necessary. And that's mainly going to be our main focus on this coming year, or this year actually. So just to mention a few things coming here from the roadmap. Another important change we're doing this year. So if you see 2019, last year, we had this structure of releasing three main releases. Excuse me. We had something called the tech stream, which meant we were releasing Unity technology. We were releasing new technology, new features. And the tech stream was made of 3 releases. Can you see my mouse cursor?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So as you can see here, we have 19.1, 19.2, 19.3. And then we had a 4th release throughout the year, which is still being brewed, let's say. And this 4th release is called LTS, long-term support. So this release doesn't contain anything new, and is one final release of the year where we basically freeze every change, and then we support that release for 2 years. So this means that if you're a developer and you're making a game and you plan to ship somewhere, you know, in 2019 or 2020, you will probably be on one of these releases, and eventually you will upgrade to this one and stay on this one for a while. So even if you release in 2020 or 2021, you will be sure that we are still supporting this version for 2 years. And when I say support, I want to clarify, I mean, we will bring basically important bug fixes. This was last year. So with the focus on quality, with the focus on stability, for this year, we have decided to switch to a different release cycle. And we are basically cutting one version. So for 2020, we have decided, we announced it like a couple of weeks ago, that we're going to go for 2 releases on the tech stream, meaning that there will be 2 new versions of Unity which contain a lot of changes. And obviously, you know, when you upgrade between them, there can be some pain, there could be some work involved. And then there will be the 2020.3 LTS, long-term support. So if you're working, you know, throughout 2020 and maybe you plan to release in 2021, you can safely think to stay on this one, and then you will start receiving fixes, and you don't need to upgrade anymore, but you will just take like the latest fixes on 2020, and because nothing changes, because there's no new features, then the upgrade will be painless. That's our idea. And the fact that we're cutting to 2 releases instead of 3 means that, number one, we have more time to test things before releasing them, right? Because we have 6 months roughly instead of 4. So we can make sure that things are more stable before we release the version. And number 2, for you, if you plan to eventually land on the LTS version, it means less upgrades. So rather than upgrading 3 times, you need to upgrade 2 times. And that's mostly it when it comes to this release cycle. The other important thing I want to say, which is sometimes overlooked, is that if you're on LTS, it makes a lot of sense to switch from an LTS to the other LTS. So we suggest that when we say, you know, when we want to make LTS versions very safe, one of the things we do is we make sure that upgrading from one LTS to the other is as painless as possible. So if you're serious about your game and you wanna have as less problems as possible, our suggestion is to figure out which LTS version makes sense for you and aim for that, and basically plan your development and you know, use that version, resisting the temptation, because I understand, you know, we release features all the time, so it's really tempting to jump, you know, and skip and jump to the next release on the tech stream. But you know, that comes with the side effect that eventually you will probably want to upgrade to the latest LTS, which means more upgrades. So, you know, plan ahead and decide the version you want to be on, and I think that's the safest bet that we suggest. And if there's any questions, let me go to the. Well, yeah, there's a question about LTS. Actually,
we can take it
Peter.
afterwards. I think we can take all the questions afterwards.
You wanna take them afterwards?
Yeah,
okay,
I think that's good.
That's cool. Yeah, it's good practice actually. So yeah, that's the biggest news on the release cycle. That's what we're gonna be focusing on. We keep the alpha and beta phase for these releases. Again, proceed with caution. Like obviously we release them because we want you to see the features, we want you to try out these features, but we are not suggesting to use them in production. That's why they're called alpha, beta. And similarly for the packages, when we release a package and we call it preview package, it really means there is a preview. So it's something that we don't suggest using in production. Some companies will still make the decision to use preview packages in production, and you know, if it makes sense, then do it. Like sometimes you really want to be on the bleeding edge of the technology, so you will take a preview package and use it in a real project. But it's something we don't really advise to do unless you really know where you're going and the reasons why you want to use that package. What else? We are focusing a lot on production orientation, meaning that even though we don't make commercial games and we still have, we stay on the decision not to make commercial games for a variety of reasons, and I can answer on the why. We are actually still making something internally to validate what we develop. So we don't want to develop Unity, in a dark room, let's say, so to speak. I don't know if the metaphor works, but in addition to the feedback that we get all the time from the community, we're also doing some internal development. So last year or 2 years ago, I don't remember, we started with, I think I have more details here. We started with FPS sample game. If you remember, it was a vertical slice of an FPS shooter, first-person shooter with online capabilities. It was a very narrow vertical slice, but it was a good example of how you would create some game that is like server authoritative. And then we released Mega City. Mega City was our way to validate our work on dots, our new technology stack. And it was our way to validate also how we would give power to the artists for dots. So Mega City has this very big focus on the scene creation. The scene in Mega City is very complex, and it's also, created by an artist, and it's not procedural. So we were working on those workflows, and in doing that, we released this sample. Last year, at Unite Copenhagen, we released another dots-based shooter. This time, we basically merged the two previous samples in some way. And so this one has been highlighting the new technology stack that we have for multiplayer and for netcode, and also animation and physics in dots. I hope you're familiar with dots, because I'll be pronouncing this word many times, and I don't know if I have time to explain what it is. I don't know if it makes sense to explain what it is here during the talk.
Please do. I mean, we have all kinds of people, students and everyone, so it's it wouldn't hurt to be specific.
Okay, I'll spend 5 minutes on that. I have another slide deck open just for that.
Yeah.
I was anticipating this. Take it as it is for now. Let's say there is a new technology stack, okay? Yeah. So we are working on it, and we are releasing some samples. And because it's a work in progress, we haven't released the final version of this technology yet. It's going to take a while, actually. But we are working on these samples, and that's why I'm saying that we're more production orientated. We have internal teams working on this stuff. The other one that we're working on, which we haven't really talked publicly yet about, is this new, I was about to say the name, is this new game, which is, as you can see, it says here, it's a large open world shooter that combines a new environment system, a really new environment system, with many of our dots powered features that you saw in the dots sample project, which is this one. And in this project, we will really push Unity to the limits of the scale you can achieve with Unity. And basically, we're gonna push the limits, outwards and make them bigger. So yeah, networking, animation, physics, they will all come together in a big scene, in a streaming world where you will see, a large-scale open-world shooter. So that's our promise, and I can't give a date for this, but what I want to say is that basically, when you see features being released, be sure that we're testing them internally on real productions. This is a bit of a summary of the stuff that came out of these demos. And again, so maybe I want to spend a couple of words on dots. Let's see. I have a presentation here. I hope you can see it full screen. Yes, I can see it from the preview. This is an old presentation that I gave at the end of last year. It's a bit longer. I'm going to skip a few slides. But basically, just to give you an overview, when I say dots, I mean this thing called the data-oriented tech stack. It's a tech stack in the sense that it's not just one feature, but it's a collection of different features coming together. And it's data-oriented because we figure out that with Unity, we have reached a point where we cannot push the limits further if we keep doing things the same way with the current architecture. And the current architecture is fine. I mean, you've used it for many years. If you used Unity, you know, the architecture made of game objects and mono behaviors and all that comes with it. It's really nice, you know, it's component-based, it's very flexible. It means that you can prototype really fast. It's really easy to understand as well, I assume. I mean, that's what I see from people. And we love it. We don't want to change it, but we figured out that with that technology stack, we couldn't push the limits any further. So we decided to go data-oriented. We decided to look in a different direction, and basically we want to squeeze every possible you know, inch of power from the computer by really looking at the data that you're handling in your game and giving you all the control over that data and passing that data in really a sensible way. And that's why it's called data-oriented tech stack. To go into detail, the data-oriented tech stack is made of different components, as I said before. And, you know, there's three main ones, I would say. C# job system, the entity component system, and the burst compiler. And then you have other pieces, other smaller pieces, which are kind of like support to these main ones. I won't have time to go over in detail over all of them, but very, very quickly. The C# job system is, as the name implies, is a job system. It's a system that allows you to create jobs. Jobs are basically small tasks that you can run on different threads on the CPU. So basically, it enables multi-threaded programming in Unity. Multi-threaded programming was not really possible in Unity. You could do it with some hacks. And then the other thing is multi-threaded programming is really hard. Even though you have it in other engines or you know, native applications that you can write, native engines, the thing is that it's very hard to do. So with the C# job system, what we're trying to achieve is a system that is easier to control. You will have the ability to create these jobs, to run these jobs on multiple threads, but then we take care of looking at potential conflicts, because when you're working in parallel on different threads on the CPU, you might have conflicts on the data that you're working with. So the C# job system has a strong safety system that allows you to, you know, don't shoot yourself in the foot. I'll skip a few slides. Burst compiler is another piece of the puzzle. It's a compiler, it's a totally new compiler that we have wrote, which transforms the C# jobs into low-level virtual machine-based backend, whatever it's machine code, that is basically highly optimized, especially for mathematics operations. So we have a new mathematics library, which really looks similar to mathf. So it's really not hard to use. But when you use that and you compare it with Burst, you can see here the last line I wrote it, an automatic 5 to 20 times speed improvement on basically the same code, just by using this library. And then the final part is of the puzzle is the entity component system. This is the one that requires a little bit more explanation. And again, I'm not going to be able to cover it all in detail. You will find a lot of talks on YouTube about this. This is the really bigger part of dots, and the one that scares some people, and the ones where my team, especially Evangelism, and you know, everybody who talks at Unity will be doing a lot of work on, because we really need to educate people on using this new piece of tech. In short, entity component system. Basically, the picture is as I said, Unity is based on this architecture made of game objects and components. It's pretty fine. We like it. We love it. But it has a few drawbacks. One of them is that these components and these game objects are in memory somewhere, and they're not ordered in memory for reasons. for reasons we can't control really. And so you have this situation where as you're working in a Unity game, your CPU is doing a lot of work trying to go and fetch all of these components everywhere in memory. So you can have a game object that points to random memory locations, and then those mono behaviors could point to another game object. And so the CPU is doing a lot of back and forth by going to the main memory, the RAM, and fetching data and bringing it to the CPU cache, and then working a little bit on that data, and then having to go back and fetch some more memory. And this work is basically what is killing your application. You know, when you hit your limits on the CPU, there's actually much more that you could do with it, but because of this architecture, you can't. So with ECS, what we're trying to do is we're trying to restructure all of this and see things from basically a different perspective and think data first. So we also, with ECS, the thing that people have to understand, and this is something that I was saying we need to teach a lot, is that there is some work that you need to do. You need to rethink the way you think about data. And basically the idea here is that components, they still exist like before, but they're smaller and they're more tightly packed into memory. So when you work on your game, you really think about the type of components you need and the type of memory that you will need. And when you look at the layout, the memory layout, you can see that components look like this. So basically they are tightly packed into arrays of components. So here you have, for example, position components, rotation, and collision. And when entities, which are basically the equivalent of game objects, they have the same components, they get packed together. So it means that when you work on them, you will find them closer in memory. And here you can see another type of entity. These ones only have position and rotation, so they're packed together into another bunch. This one is alone, it has position, rotation, and character, for example, and this one only has position. So all of these entities are basically organized into what we call archetypes. And this means that they sit in memory together, and it means that the CPU can iterate on them much, much faster. And I want to skip this one. And then the way you write logic is you have these things called systems, which are basically very similar to mono behaviors, but rather than be attached to an object, they are running queries on these entities and finding the entities and working on them. Now, I think I'm going too much into detail on this without actually giving the proper details, because as I said, the topic is very vast. It will require you to do a little bit of work in understanding how ECS works. And that's something that we're going to dedicate a lot of time in the coming months, especially. As I said, my team is really dedicated to this, is dedicated to teaching about new features.
And I must say this is
I don't know how much
important to
time do I
emphasize.
have left.
I mean, this is a big change to Unity.
It is, yeah. So let me wrap up this topic, because as I said, like, I could go on and talk about it for hours, but I am very conscious of the time. How much time do I have?
Well, you have a couple of minutes more.
Okay, yeah, that's really not enough to go into details, but I wanna, let me unshare the screen. I lost Zoom. Okay. Oh yeah. So as I was saying, yeah, it's a big change. It's a big change in paradigm. The idea that we're pursuing with DOTS is that we are working on it first. So we are making sure that it's a solid technology and that it makes sense. So we're running a lot of tests. We're running a lot of tests with our consumers as well. There are some companies that are already using DOTS extensively in their productions, and they're basically validating what we're doing with the development. Then the next step is we're taking all of our technology, so animation, physics, audio, transform, and we are changing it into DOTS. So we're making it much more performant, and that's going to happen a bit under the hood. So sometimes in the future, you will be using DOTS pieces of technology and you wouldn't even realize. And then the third step is when we have all these pieces ready, we will ask people to slowly, gradually move to this new way of programming and this new way of handling things. And obviously we want to do it in the most, in the smoothest way possible. So that is requiring a lot of work, and it's still a work in progress, to be honest. If you've been to Unite Copenhagen last year, you will have seen during the keynote how we debuted a new way, some new APIs for dots, and you will have seen how they were shorter than the previous ones. So one of our concerns, is having like shorter code, easier to understand, and all that comes with it. So basically, there's a lot of work that we're doing to simplify this process and to ease developers from, the current game object and mono behavior structure to dots. And the final thing I want to say about dots is that it's not going to be a hard transition. So there's not going to be one day when you will see Unity deprecate game objects all of a sudden. It's going to be a very, very long tail. Because we know that there are productions that are still using game objects and mono behaviors, and they will still be using them for maybe 3 years or 4 years. So we won't be killing that way of doing things anytime soon, but we will gradually move to the new one, and we will provide conversion tools. We will provide, obviously plenty of tutorials, and tools to switch slowly and gradually when you need and when you want to this new way of doing things, which is going to be very convenient, but it will take some time to learn.
Cool. Sounds like you have a lot in the pipe.
Stop talking. Yeah, we have a lot.
But still really interesting. So I think we maybe should switch over to the Q&A session.
Sure.
Yeah.
So I'll have some questions. You want me
to read them, or you want to read them?
Yeah, you can read them, of course.
Okay. So Peter was asking, you're saying, hello guys, and thanks for the initiatives. A question about Unity. Do you have an approximate date for an LTS version of Unity 2019? I don't, unfortunately. Historically, I've seen the LTS version coming out like roughly 3 months after the final release of the year. And I think you've seen that this year, 2019.3 was delayed a little bit. It took us a little bit more because there were a lot of things landing into it. So we really wanted to, again, the focus is stability. So we really wanted to make it stable, and that's why we didn't release until it was really, really ready. We even released a blog post kind of like announcing the delay, which is something unusual, but it was really needed because we needed to address the fact that it was so late. So to LTS for me, again, I think I can't really give a date, but it should be coming out soon. I don't know. Are you asking for any specific reason? Because you're on a previous LTS version and you want to move to this one? You can use the chat to elaborate if you want. And then he asks another question. Will the new environment system be good to use on mobile? I don't know yet. I want to say, I mean, the new environment system that I mentioned is dots based, so it will take a while to be finished and completed. But I will say we always aim for things to be compatible with all platforms, if it makes sense. So I'm pretty sure that the new environment system will be in some way. Maybe you won't have all the features, but I think we're aiming to make something that runs on all platforms. You can click answer live. Another attendee asks, what's the ETA on dots reaching a point where it's stable out of preview? Again, this is one of those things where it's hard to say. I will only say that we are looking to stabilize the entities package. So one of the parts of dots, the entity component system that I mentioned, it has a bunch of APIs which, at some point we need to stop improving on them. We need to stop changing them because people will want to start using them in production. And that's what we call entities package 1.0. So while I don't have a specific date, I know that we were aiming for this year to be the year where we release Entities 1.0. And then, you know, on top of that, we can start building all the dots features of the future. So we can really, I think once Entities 1.0 is out, we can go much faster on dots features, because our internal teams will be able to say, okay, this is the final tech. We now know what we have to build, and then they can go faster and basically convert all of the internal Unity system to dots. So right now we have some working transforms. We have physics in collaboration with Havoc, and we have some initial animation system, some I would say primordial audio system. And I know, for example, Cinemachine is being converted, and you know, once Entities 1.0 is out, we will see many more systems being converted much faster. What is Unity's stance on the emerging cloud gaming solutions and developing towards them? I don't have much information on this, but I can say one thing: you can watch the roadmap tonight, because that's going to be the focus on that. It's a big question, so I don't know how to answer what's our stance. Our stance is obviously that we are very invested in it, to be honest. Yeah, so I have an answer, actually. We're very invested in it. We have several initiatives pointing to, actually, I don't know, do you mean cloud gaming as in cloud gaming solutions? Do you mean as in networked games, or? Yeah, I don't really understand the question, but I suggest if you watch the roadmap tonight, again, 6 p.m. on the main Unity YouTube channel, that will be dedicated to live games. I don't know if they will cover cloud gaming in particular. Yeah, so going back to Peter, he was asking about LTS, and in the chat he says we're on 2018 LTS and want features from 2019. That makes sense. I assume, I don't know what kind of features you want, but obviously there's much to love in 2019. So yeah, I can only say that maybe if you should look at your release date, and if it makes sense, you know, if you think that you will be releasing later in the year, you know, kind of like late in the year, like December, or maybe next year, then it might make sense for you to start working on 2019.1 or 2 or 3. Actually, why not go to 19.3? That will make more sense, because by the time you release, you will have 19.4. So even though 19.4 LTS is not available now, if you want to start working with the new features from 2019, then it might make sense to switch now, because, you know, 19.4 is going to come. If it's not this month, it's going to be next month, but it's going to come soon. So I think the real deal there is looking at your potential release date and try to make an estimate on that. And there's another question from Jakob. Are you guys at all worried that the DOTS and ECS system will increase the difficulty for new developers to learn to develop with Unity? Yes, we are worried. It's a question that comes many times. I know that at first glance, it looks like the thing is much more difficult. I would say that I learned to use dots just a couple of months ago. Well, no, a bit more. Sorry. This is now 2020, maybe 6 months ago, I would say. And my first impact was also the same. I looked at it and I was like, wow, this is crazy. You know, it's a completely different way. In reality, it's not. C# is the same language. You need to make a little bit of a shift in understanding what the priority is for you as a programmer. But what I want to highlight is that it's a shift, is not something on top. So you don't need to make much more work than learning than the work you were doing when learning object-oriented. The work is similar, it's just that it's new to us. So for us, for me and maybe for you guys, programmers who have been working with object-oriented for their whole life, it might look like a huge deal. I think for new users is not as hard, but the APIs are somehow a bit more complex today. We will do two things. One thing is we will simplify them as much as possible. So we will provide APIs that are maybe similar to the ones that we have today, in the sense that they will be similar, easier to understand. And the second point is we have visual scripting coming as well, and that's going to be a big part of learning dots. And you might say, I don't like visual scripting. Maybe you're a programmer, you don't like block-based coding. Fine. We don't expect programmers to use visual scripting, but what I think is that visual scripting will be really useful to learn dots, because when you use visual scripting, the one that we will provide, you will see that as you build a graph, it will create code live. And that will give you a way to learn ECS code in a bit of an easier way, because you can create your code with blocks, see what it becomes, learn coding in ECS, in dots. And once you're familiar with it, you can ditch visual scripting altogether and just code yourself. So that's going to be one way to enter the world of Unity development with dots in a bit of an easier learning curve. And that's it. I think we're also approaching the end of the call, right?
Absolutely. It's been amazing to have you here. Really interesting to hear what's happening, and it's a lot, as we can tell. So that's fantastic.
Tonight we have this roadmap sessions for live games, or you can catch up on the previous roadmap session for core and games if you want. It's still on YouTube, so it's easy to get a bigger picture, bigger than what I could provide here.
Super. I'm sure a couple of the developers will tune in for that.
Yes.
I also want to mention this session is coming to the end. We're having this weekly.
Sorry, I just want to finish. If people have questions, just reach me. If you see my name, Ciro, Ciro@unity3d.com. If you have questions, I can't resolve bugs. I can't fix things through the email. But if you have direction questions, like the ones you've been asking here in the chat, feel free. So again, Ciro@unity3d.com.
Maybe we can put it in the chat.
Oh yeah, sure.
That'd be great. Super. All right. Thank you very much. We will have this weekly, these talks, and for next week we're still in discussions who will be the speaker. So if you have suggestions, you're welcome. In 2 weeks we will have Oscar Clark from Fundamentally Games. He's going to talk about the game industry. We're discussing topics still, but it's going to be great. Oscar is a great guy and he's well known in the industry, so I think it's going to be a fabulous talk.
Yes.
So that's it for today. And if there's anything you want to suggest or so, please email us at news@arcticgamelab.com. All right. Thank you for watching.
Thank you.